It's also about whole communities that actually bought into Trump's rhetoric that people who had earned their right to be in America were legitimate citizens, and that the people who were abusing that right, entering illegally, etc., were going to be dealt with. But the more he blurs the line between who is here legally and who came in as an illegal person crossing the border, the more now it looks like there's real bias remorse.
As always, Sarah, we're spot for choice on what to talk about. I mean, one story in its own way more remarkable than the last one. I'm just going to start with this because it did sort of make your eyes open wide, and you wondered if you quite heard what you think you'd heard. It was last night in the President of the United States cabinet meeting, which is basically a live media event, when Donald Trump launched into a really, truly explosive, bigoted rant about Somali migrants in America. This is what he said.
I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too. I can say it about other countries, too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country.
I don't know. Sarah, what do you say about that? What do you say about that? How did that strike you when you heard it?
Well, it was a wholesale attack on an entire community, which was pretty shocking in itself. But of course, we have heard Donald Trump make incredibly provocative statements about people coming from SH1T whole countries, join the dots yourself. And so this is in keeping with his tradition of speaking rather offensively about whole groups. I should say that it does come on the back of a really damaging fraud scandal involving members of the Somali community in Minnesota, which has been seriously damaging to the reputation of Tim Walz, the governor of the state, who was Kamala Harris's candidate for vice president. So this is one of the reasons why Trump has singled out the Somali community. But of course, it's total collective punishment. There are 80,000 Somalis in Minnesota, and of course, they're all being damned by the president. And by the way, members of his cabinet, including Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, are widening their attack on almost everybody who is not born in the US and a US citizen. And Caroline Leavitt, the president's spokesman, made an astonishing claim today that you shouldn't really and couldn't be a dual national, which is not at all what the Supreme Court thinks about Americans. And would, of course, jeopardize my own status as a dual national, so I have a vested interest. But the attack on Somalis was like the horrible tip of the spear of a wider attack on all immigrants to the US. Some people are pointing out, well, that includes, Melania Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's been said countless times, look at what President Trump does, not what he says. In this case, what he said was pretty grotesque. But what he's going to do is worthy of attention too, in the case of the Somali, American Somalians, because we're talking about ICE teams being sent into Minneapolis with orders to round people up. And it's been pointed out that a great many of these Somalians now in America have been there for many years and are US citizens.
Well, yes, but Trump has also been talking about removing citizenship rights, which is actually very difficult to do legally. But his whole government, Kristi Noem, spoke about remigration, which is a very far-right concept, or has been hitherto, I should say, and denaturalization of US citizens. Now, it was always the case, if you had a green card, you broke the law, you were no longer welcome. But if you had a green card up till this point in American life, you are treated as a citizen. You pay taxes. You are eligible for benefits like Social Security. All these things now, we don't know how it's going to sort of pan out, but all these things, whether it's green card holders or dual national citizens, people who are just American citizens but were not born in the US, the American administration is talking as if everybody is potentially vulnerable to a wider dragnet.
Yeah, and it includes Afghans as well, doesn't it? After the awful shooting of those two National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C., the crosshairs seem to encompass pretty much all Afghans in America as well. I mean, Sam, what are you thinking about this?
I am appalled. It's shocking. And I think it's that thing of it is just now considered normal. This is now considered normal, and I think that's a really sad state of affairs. I think clearly mass migration to the West is causing huge tensions, and there are problems with integration and cultural differences. But to demonise an entire community in that way is still shocking, and it should be shocking. And I think when you treat people who are there legally like that, I think that's worrying for all citizens.
I mean, it's no sense of how this stuff plays, in America, where you are a Sarah. I mean, it now goes without saying there'll be a section of the strongly pro-Trump base that will like this sort of language and defend it to the ends of the earth. On balance, is it doing him good or harm?
I think it started off doing him a lot of good because he was fulfilling his promise to end mass migration to the US. Now, he also said there would be mass deportations. That was claimed before he was elected. So to that extent, the American people are getting what they voted for. But the actual harshness of this regime, separating children from their parents, rounding up people who are actually going to their appointments at the immigration office where they've been asked to attend in order to get their status regularized. They're getting snatched by ICE agents there. The spouses, including British spouses of US servicemen, are getting threatened with deportation. A 19-year-old student who'd flown to see her family in Texas suddenly got deported to Honduras when she boarded a flight, even though she hadn't lived in Honduras since she was 8 and is now there on her own. I mean, the cruelty is, I think, leading to a backlash. And it's not only that, John, it's also about whole communities that actually bought into Trump's rhetoric that people who had earned their right to be in America were legitimate citizens, and that the people who were abusing that right, entering illegally, etc., were going to be dealt with. But the more he blurs the line between who is here legally and who came in as an illegal person crossing the border, the more now it looks like there's real bias remorse among Hispanic communities, among some Asian communities, among various minority communities who were tempted to vote for him on economic grounds and now see themselves or their loved ones or family members or colleagues getting harassed, detained and deported when they haven't done anything wrong.
There was some evidence of that, wasn't there, in the recent special elections in for the mayor of New York. I mean, no one imagined for one solitary second that the Republican Party were going to win that election right now. But the Latino vote in New York, that swung in a way that it did not in the general election, and part of that is attributed to this as well. Mikey, what are you thinking?
Well, look, the attacks on the Somali community, as you said, are remarkable in many ways. Of course, they're shocking. I don't think they're surprising if you look back at what the Trump administration or sections of it have been leading us up to at this point. As you say, the vast majority of people of Somali heritage in Minnesota, I think it's 95%, are citizens, not green card holders, not people with visas. They are citizens, either naturalised or by birth.
Been there 20, 30 years.
Many of them, yeah. A lot of them came in the 90s under George Bush. And what he's talking about is deporting people who are citizens of the United States because of their heritage. And, there's a word for that. And you look at the thing that I've been trying to get people to pay attention to and hasn't really caught on yet. Have a look at the Twitter account that's run by the Department of Homeland Security. And just look at it's got a habit of posting memes. And these memes, quite a lot of them, are coded white nationalists, dog whistle. That they are known codes that are used by white nationalists to spread their ideas to each other. And this is the official, output of a government department in the United States. We can say this is just Trump being Trump, and he says things and has views that are unsavoury, but behind him he has people in his administration who know what they're doing, and this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to remove people who are not of a certain heritage from the country.
It's Pienaar and Friends. I'm John Pienaar. We've got Mikey Smith here from The Mirror. We've got Sam Lister from The Express and Sarah Baxter in New York from the Marie Colvin Center for International Reporting. I just want to move on to I'm going to stop using the word extraordinary and think of another one. The story concerning the former president of Honduras, who has been given a pardon. Sarah, for those who haven't been plugged into this story, just tell us what this is about.
Yes, well, President Hernandez was dealing with drug traffickers and cartels and taking a cut of the money, and was sentenced to 45 years in jail for his role in drug smuggling, and has just been released. Now, the astonishing thing is that this takes place against a backdrop of ordering potentially unlawful strikes against small boats that are leaving Venezuela, purportedly carrying drugs, that are being, lethally, the people on board are being lethally dispatched. And there is a huge debate in America at the moment as to whether or not some survivors clinging to the wreckage were also killed in what would be tantamount to a war crime. So it seems it's okay if you're president to help yourself to large amounts of sums from enabling drug dealers like El Chapo, but not to be a small-time drug mule or smuggler on a small fishing boat, assuming that that is indeed what the people who were killed in lethal strikes were, because nobody knows actually who they were. So it seems astonishing timing, but there is one connective thread, John, and that is that President Hernandez was a president, obviously former president now, and there's one group of people in the world that Trump is supremely sympathetic to when they claim that they're victims of political shenanigans, and that is presidents. So the fact that Hernandez was able to claim that, he was really the victim of a political persecution, really struck a chord with Donald Trump. He empathizes because he feels he was victimized himself. And I should add that today, President Trump has also pardoned a Democratic Texan lawmaker, also accused of corruption, and has freed others as well. Because basically, one thinks of the fantasist George Santos, who made up all sorts of weird stuff about his life in New York. He was pardoned because all these people are claiming that they're victims of political persecution by the so-called Biden, regime or whatever.
Yes.
And that just, and Trump's like, oh, okay, fair enough, I'll sign a pardon then. Yeah,
it's a bit of a conveyor belt. It's now becoming almost, 2 a week. Pardons, usually both of the two, if it's too controversial in one way or another. It seems he's just got the bug, signing pardons. He's realised he can do it and he's just dashing them off.
Yeah, he also wants to undo Joe Biden's pardons on the basis that they were done with a so-called auto pen because Sleepy Joe wasn't awake. But of course, you may have seen some of the pictures of Donald Trump now nodding off in cabinet meetings. So he's soon going to be called Sleepy Don if he's not careful.
Sleepy Don, Sam.
Well, he's a fair old age, Donald Trump. He's pretty sprightly, but he's kind of knocking on a little bit. So let's forgive him the odd 40 winks here and there. But I think on the presidential pardon thing, I find the concept insane anyway. Just to me, I think it's just from an English point of view, it seems so out of kilter with what's right and just that I do find it odd. And I think. for a president to just be able to to undo the legal process just through sympathy with people who he believes have been politically persecuted on the basis of nothing.
And then demanding pardons for others around the world. I mean, demanding a pardon for Benjamin Netanyahu from the now president of Israel, demanding a pardon for Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil. This is a guy who was convinced, I think he's now behind bars, for trying to organise a murderous coup to hang on to power, which involved actually the murder of his political opponent and the Chief Justice of Brazil. And he was a fan of the President of the United States, and it was mutual. And so the demand went out, pardon Jair Bolsonaro. Not just a demand, though. It was backed up by the threat of trade sanctions if it was not done.
It is a crazy system, and I actually wonder if Sarah might want to respond on this. But I'm trying to rack my brains now. But I think President Biden didn't President Biden pardon his son,
and others
connected to it,
considered was vulnerable, legally vulnerable to a Trump administration.
And I think isn't this?
He gave blanket pardons to people who might be prosecuted, who weren't in fact yet prosecuted, but sort of pardons in advance to people like Anthony Fauci, who presided over as chief science officer during the COVID pandemic.
But is there a point to this system? Because it seems to be abused by whoever's in it. And I don't know, Sarah, if you can tell us what the point to this is, because
it's a long-standing feature of U.S. justice. One thinks of all the Hollywood films that have the cliffhanger of whether the governor or the president is going to pardon somebody, and the reason is because the courts are actually more the judicial system is actually more partisan than it is in Britain, more ostensibly so anyway. You have Republican appointed judges, you have Democratic appointed judges, and ultimately the president is given this executive power. I imagine if one looks back in history, the British Crown probably had that power, but I don't know what happened to it. Perhaps a historian among our listeners could tell us. I don't suppose King Charles can just say, I waive a pardon now. No. But it's part of that head of state executive power, whereas we only have prime ministers.